Steve Schmidt has advised presidents, run game-changing campaigns, and become an eloquent defender of democracy. His writings in the Warning newsletter have marked him as a singular voice of moral clarity in his generation. And I'm thrilled he's joining us tonight on Narativ to discuss the trial and the upcoming election. And we welcome Steve Schmidt to the show today. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, Zev. It's a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. You know, based on the current swing state polling, if the election were held today, it does seem to me that Donald Trump could win that election. In most of these swing states, he's still 6 points ahead of Joe Biden. Are we looking at a likely second administration for Donald Trump?
I wouldn't say likely, but he could win. No question about it. And in fact, if the election were tomorrow, he probably would win. You know, reality is that, his calculus going into this election is that there's enough indifference out there, plus the fanaticism of his base to get him over the top. Chris Sununu was utterly humiliated, exposed for really level of cynicism that's hard to articulate with George Stephanopoulos on Sunday. One of the things the New Hampshire governor said is that, Trump is supported by 51% of the country. That has never been the case. It will never be the case. There will never be a majority of Americans that support this. Question is, can it take power with a minority over a majority will? And the answer to that question is yes, that could happen. And, Biden is a weak candidate in this race. He has enormous liabilities in the campaign because this is a communication business. And it's going to be a campaign where, in the end, the American people are going to have to evaluate a staggeringly easy choice to make in the context of considerations around the destiny of the country, where we're going, what's happening, what is Trump, what is his movement, what does it stand for, what does it believe in, is it dangerous? All these questions are now in front of the country, who's had a rather naive view about it, for much of the last decade, which, will be remembered historically as really the Trump era. Incredibly, it's gone on for almost 10 years in America now.
I know, it is stunning, that amount of time. I'm just thinking about how long I've been doing this podcast. When you think about 8 years of your life, and it's like 8 years of how much time it's to deal with Donald Trump, it's just unbelievable. But we talk about this valuation that you point out. You didn't talk about the trials that Donald Trump may or may not have to deal with. Certainly the hush money case has sort of begun now. The Democrats have a lot of weight invested in some sort of criminal outcome changing what Americans decide in November. Do you view that kind of optimism that some Democrats have, that a conviction in this case, the hush money case, are enough to really push Biden over Donald Trump?
I've done consulting work on political campaigns all over the world. And you go into a different country and they hire American consultants, and there's this belief embedded in that hire that the American consultant is going to bring some sort of magic bullet, right? Some sort of elixir into the race, some alchemy that just because through presence, they're going to win. And it doesn't work like that. These criminal cases have been a debacle for the cause of defeating Donald Trump. Now, there's only one of them that is going to trial before the election, and that's the one we're in right now. There's no question in my mind that the lead up to it has benefited Trump enormously. That being said, watching him come into the courtroom is a diminishing event. This is somebody who is stripped of his trappings, his accoutrement. The fact is that he is now outside of his terrarium like a fish outside of the tank. There is no crowd assembled as in the Mar-a-Lago dining room to stand and applaud when he appears. He is being subjected to the same rules like everybody else, and I think he appears a lot like the Wizard of Oz, right? Unmasked from behind the screen. So we'll see what the accumulation of that is over 8 weeks' time. I do believe this, and I wrote about it today. Presidential campaign, in my view, is the greatest non-lethal competition in the world, period. And it's a contact sport. The contact that the of it manifests at a psychological level. And so you put a picture of Donald Trump up on the screen, and the one that I gravitated to from yesterday is the image coming through the doors. Does he look happy?
He does not look happy.
Does he look like he's going home with a spring in his step to bound through the door at Trump Tower to make love to his beautiful Melania in the late afternoon?
That is not what he appears to be doing, no.
I'm going to tell you exactly what he does. He leaves enraged, and he goes home, and he puts the television on, and he surveils it, all of it. He watches all the jokes made about him for his enemies list. He evaluates all of the sycophants that are auditioning to be vice president. He's available for flattery from the detritus that surrounds him. This is a time where you know where he is, what he's watching. And this is when he should be visited by the campaign, taunting him, mocking him, diminishing him, destabilizing him and his team to put him off balance. In the end, whomever the person is that wins the race is going to be the candidate that is able to make the race about the other person. In other words, if the race is about you, you will be the losing candidate. The race has to be about Trump. Incredibly, this massive propaganda apparatus that surrounds MAGA, manifested in Fox, Newsmax, OAN, all this bullshit, has been able to destroy Biden's reputation for competence, for probity, for rectitude, after a lifetime of getting to know the guy. It's incredible to watch. It's a huge failure on the part of the White House. But this is a Rocky Apollo Creed fight. Middle of the ring. The president has to debate him, has to face him, and has to do the equivalent of knocking this disgraceful, disgusting bully on his ass. That's the job that at age 82, Biden has demanded that he get to do again. And so he needs to do it. And we have 202 days left for him to be able to do it in a time of growing, momentous crisis in the world.
Let's follow up on some of this stuff, because if we have a trial here that ends up in a conviction for Donald Trump, what does that do to the race versus, let's say, a hung jury in this case?
I think it shrinks him to nothingness. Mm-hmm. He will be revealed over the course of the trial to be what I believe him to be, which is a low-life criminal. Mm-hmm. That being said, and I've said this, right, through all of this, is that the American people have to believe in their institutions here, right, and have to have faith in them. What Donald Trump did, and I say this as someone who placed a concession phone call, I placed it for John McCain to Barack Obama, is break his oath and assault in the most dastardly way possible the cornerstone of American civilization, the peaceful transition of power and the apportionment of political power through the outcome of an election. Now, his fate rests in the hands of a jury of his peers. And make no mistake, right? This Manhattan jury is a jury of his peers. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is of this place, heart and soul. And so even his most ferocious critics, like me, have to be the people who are the most steadfast in demanding that those jurors, those citizens, follow their oath and give him a fair trial. But if he's found guilty, then it's going to hurt him, is what all of the polling seems to suggest. And I just don't believe that there is a movement of Americans out there that will rally to the jailhouse and surround it to break their guy out. You have a couple hundred people at the most on the streets. This is a TV show. And Trump, at the end of the day, is a philosopher of fuck youism. That's his appeal. Yeah. If you obliterate trust in every institution in the country, and your average person out there looks at government, they're not expecting a result. They just want to deliver a little bit of agitation back towards the people that have been, for the last 10 years, completely destabilized by Trump. The banks, the tech companies, whatever it may be, the elite of the country. Trump is their vessel, not to make their lives better, but to deliver a type of sugar high, or fuck you. Because sometimes that fuck you feels good, right? Whether you're driving down the road.
Sure. Yeah.
And anytime, any day of the week might be time for a delicious fuck you to someone. And so 9 years in, right, we have this situation, and that's what this guy is. And in order to beat him and put it away, you have to offer better. And the reality is, right, this is true. There's 500 background quotes to back it up. The Biden team wanted Trump.
They did.
Wanted him in the race, right? Because he was the patsy, right? He was the easiest opponent. He was the guy that justified the rationale for Biden to run for a second term. Only Biden can beat Trump, beat him again. He'll knock him on his ass again. But hey, somewhere along the way, right?
Yeah.
Now Biden's the incumbent. Trump's the challenger, right? What was up is down, and down is up, and red is blue, and blue is red, and voila, all of a sudden, Trump looks like he's the only guy, right, that any Democrat, right, could conceivably be beaten by, right, is Biden. And so but at any rate, wherever we are right now, in this moment, the choice is the choice. And the choice is Biden versus Trump, and it's a close race. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.